What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars completely loses it on live television? In just 21 seconds, a friendly chat turned into an absolute nightmare that had everyone's jaws on the floor. Before we get into this wild story, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Last night on the Norton show, what started as another evening of celebrity banter turned into one of the most shocking moments in talk show history. Colin Farrell was supposed to be there promoting his latest film, sitting on that famous red couch alongside a few other guests. But nobody could have predicted what was about to go down. The show kicked off normally enough. Graham was doing his thing, making everyone laugh with his quick wit and charming Irish humor. The studio audience was packed, all excited to see their favorite stars up close. The energy was good, really good. People were clapping, cheering, having the time of their lives. Colin seemed relaxed at first, cracking jokes with the other guests, sipping his drink, looking like he was genuinely enjoying himself. He was telling stories about being on set, making everyone laugh with his spot-on impressions of the director. The audience was eating it up, loving every single second. Everything seemed perfectly fine. The other guests were having a blast too. Everyone was vibing, trading funny stories back and forth. There was this great chemistry happening on the couch, the kind that makes for excellent television. Graham was in his element, bouncing between guests, keeping the conversation flowing smoothly like a conductor leading an orchestra. This is what he does best, making everyone feel comfortable and entertained. The show was running exactly how it's supposed to run. Smooth, fun, engaging television that people tune in for week after week. Colin had just finished telling this hilarious story about a mishap during filming where he accidentally walked into the wrong trailer and interrupted another actor getting their makeup done. The whole studio was laughing. Graham was wiping tears from his eyes. It was one of those perfect talk show moments where everything just clicks. But then Graham brought up Colin's past. Now, we all know Colin has been open about his journey with sobriety and the struggles he faced earlier in his career. It's something he's talked about before in interviews, in press junkets, in magazine features, on podcasts. He's been honest about the dark times, the partying that got out of control, the nights he can't remember, the mistakes he made when he was younger and wilder and thought he was invincible. And he's worked incredibly hard to turn his life around, to become the man he is today, to be a better father, a better person. It's been a long journey for him, one that took years of work and dedication and therapy and support. Graham, in his typical style, made what he probably thought was a light-hearted comment about Colin's wild days in Hollywood. He mentioned some of the stories that used to make headlines back in the early 2000s, the nights out at clubs, the chaos at award shows, the tabloid photos that were everywhere. "Remember when you were the wildest man in Hollywood?" Graham said with a grin. "Those were some legendary times, weren't they?" The audience laughed a little, probably thinking this was just part of the usual celebrity roasting that happens on the show. After all, Graham's known for playfully teasing his guests. It's part of his charm, part of what makes the show work so well. He's done it with everyone from Daniel Radcliffe to Jennifer Lawrence. But Colin didn't laugh. Not even a courtesy chuckle. Not even a smile. His whole face changed in an instant. You could see it in his eyes. The way they went from bright and friendly and full of warmth to cold and hard like steel. That relaxed, fun-loving guy who'd been joking around just moments before, gone, completely gone, replaced by someone who looked genuinely hurt and angry and betrayed. "That's not really funny, Graham," Colin said, his voice dropping lower, taking on an edge that cut through the laughter in the room like a blade. The smile had completely disappeared from his face, replaced by something much darker, something nobody in that studio wanted to see. Graham, perhaps not reading the room or thinking Colin was just playing along with some bit, tried to keep things light. "Oh, come on, Colin. We're just having a bit of fun here. You've told these stories yourself. You're famous for being honest about all of it. You've never shied away from your past." "Yeah, I've told my stories," Colin shot back, leaning forward in his seat, his body language shifting from relaxed to tense in a heartbeat. His hands gripped the armrest of the couch. "About my struggles, when I was ready to talk about them, when I chose to open up about them, when I felt it was the right time and the right place. There's a difference between me sharing my journey and you making jokes about the worst time of my life for a cheap laugh. The energy in the studio shifted immediately, like someone had flipped a switch and cut all the power. The other guests on the couch looked uncomfortable, glancing at each other with wide eyes, not sure where to look or what to do with their hands. Should they intervene? Should they stay quiet? Should they pretend this wasn't happening? The audience went quiet too, the laughter dying in their throats like someone had grabbed them by the neck. You could feel the tension spreading through the room like wildfire, consuming all the good vibes that had been there just seconds before. One woman in the front row actually covered her mouth with her hand. A guy near the back shifted in his seat, looking around nervously like he was trying to find the exit. This wasn't what anyone came here for. This wasn't what they expected. Graham tried to backtrack, his smile becoming more forced, more strained. Colin, I didn't mean anything by it. I honestly didn't. I thought we were all just having a laugh. I thought this was okay. I thought... You thought what? Colin interrupted, his Irish accent getting thicker the way it does when he's emotional, when he's really feeling something deep in his bones. You thought it'd be grand to bring up my addiction issues for entertainment? You think that's what people tune in for? To watch you take shots at someone's darkest moments? To watch you make light of the fact that I almost destroyed my entire life? That's not what I was doing at all, Graham said, his own smile fading now, replaced by a look of concern mixed with defensiveness. He straightened up in his chair. He was clearly trying to regain control of his show, to steer this back to safe territory before it went completely off the rails. I was simply referencing your own words from previous interviews. You've been very open about your recovery. You've written about it in detail, talked about it extensively on other shows, even made it part of your public narrative. I didn't think this was crossing any boundaries. I didn't think open about it on my terms. Colin's voice was rising now, echoing through the studio, bouncing off the walls. There's a massive difference between me choosing to discuss my recovery in a meaningful way, in a context where it matters, where it can help people, and you throwing it out there like it's some punchline, like it's just another funny anecdote to fill time between commercial breaks. Do you get that? Do you understand the difference? Because it doesn't seem like you do. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this car crash in real time. The camera operators didn't know where to focus. On Colin? On Graham? On the uncomfortable guests between them? The producers were probably freaking out in the control room, scrambling to figure out what to do, checking their watches, wondering how long until the next scheduled break. But nobody stopped the show. This was happening live, broadcast to millions of homes, and there was no going back. No do-overs. No editing this out in post-production. The whole country was watching this unfold in real time. Graham, to his credit, tried to apologize. He held up his hands in a gesture of peace. Colin, if I've offended you, I'm truly sorry. That wasn't my intention at all. I have nothing but respect for your journey, for everything you've overcome. I've said as much many times. But Colin wasn't having it. He shook his head, his jaw clenched tight. Your intention? Your intention was to get a laugh at my expense, to score some easy points with the audience, to make yourself look clever. Well, congratulations, Graham. You really know how to make a guy feel welcome on your show. You really know how to create a safe space. One of the other guests, a British actress who'd been sitting quietly the whole time, tried to jump in, probably trying to defuse the situation before it got worse. Hey guys, maybe we should take a breath here and... Colin put his hand up, cutting her off mid-sentence. No. Let's not pretend this is okay. Let's not just brush past this and move on to the next bit like nothing happened. Because something did happen. A line got crossed, and everyone in this room knows it. You can feel it. He gestured around the studio, at the audience, at the crew, at everyone. Look at their faces. Nobody's laughing now. Nobody thinks this is funny. Because it's not funny. It never was. Graham's face was getting red now, his neck flushing the way it does when someone's getting worked up, when their blood pressure starts rising. You could see he was caught between apologizing and defending himself, between trying to save the show and standing his ground. His reputation was on the line here. Colin, I've interviewed hundreds of people who've overcome addiction. Hundreds. I've had countless conversations about recovery on this show. I've platformed people's stories, given them a voice, celebrated their journeys. I've never once made light of anyone's struggles. I respect everything you've been through, everything you've accomplished. I've said that publicly many times. Do you? Colin asked, his voice sharp as a knife, cutting through Graham's words like they were nothing. Because it sure as hell doesn't feel like respect when you're digging up my past for cheap laughs, when you're using my pain as material. You know what the problem is with you talk show hosts? You think because someone's famous, their pain is public property? You think you can just poke at old wounds and it's all fair game because we're celebrities? Because we signed up for this somehow? Because we make movies and walk red carpets? That's not fair, Graham said, his voice firm now, more defensive than apologetic. He was getting frustrated. You could hear it in every word. I've always been respectful on this show. Always. I've supported you through every project you've done. Every single one. I've celebrated your comeback, your sobriety, your success, your awards. Everything. I've been in your corner for years. Right up until the moment you decided to make jokes about it, Colin fired back without missing a beat. Right up until you thought it would be entertaining to bring up the worst period of my life. That's when your support ends, apparently. When there's a punchline to be had. When there's a laugh you can get from the audience. The atmosphere was absolutely toxic now, thick with tension you could cut with a knife. The audience didn't know whether to gasp or stay silent or what. Some people looked genuinely uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, looking at their phones like they wanted to leave but couldn't. The other guests on the couch had basically frozen, like they were hoping if they stayed still. Enough. If they didn't move or speak or even breathe too loudly, they'd become invisible, and this nightmare would pass them by. One of the cameramen actually lowered his camera for a second, unsure if he should keep filming. But the director in the booth must have told him to keep going because the camera went right back up. This was television gold, even if it was painful to watch. Graham took a deep breath, trying to calm things down, trying to be the bigger person here. Look, let's take a moment here. Let's both take a breath. We're both getting heated. This is getting out of hand. Can we just what? Colin stood up from the couch abruptly, the sudden movement making everyone in the studio jump. Some people in the audience actually gasped out loud. Pretend you didn't cross a line? Pretend that was okay? Pretend we can just laugh this off and move forward like nothing happened? I don't think so, Graham. I've done hundreds of interviews in my career. Hundreds. I've sat on dozens of couches just like this one. I've answered thousands of questions about my life, my work, my personal struggles. And I've never ever felt disrespected the way I do right now. Never. Graham stood up too, which is unusual for him. He usually stays seated during these moments, keeps things casual and comfortable, maintains that laid-back vibe the show is known for. But this was beyond casual now. This was a confrontation. This was a fight. Colin, you're overreacting. I made one comment, one single reference to something you've discussed openly in countless interviews. One comment that showed you don't actually give a damn about what I went through, Colin said, his voice breaking slightly with emotion. And that's when you realized this wasn't just anger. This wasn't just a celebrity throwing a tantrum because their ego got bruised. This was real pain, raw, genuine pain that came from somewhere deep. You think because I'm an actor, because I make movies, because I'm successful now, because I've got money in the bank, that my struggles are entertainment. They're not. They nearly killed me, Graham. They nearly destroyed my family, my career, my relationships, everything I cared about. So excuse me if I don't find them particularly amusing. Excuse me if I don't think they're good material for your show. The silence in that studio was deafening, oppressive, crushing. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. It felt like the whole world had stopped spinning on its axis. The audience members looked at each other, confused, uncomfortable, wondering what they were supposed to do. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't what they signed up for when they came to see a lighthearted talk show. Graham tried one more time, his voice softer now, trying a different approach. Colin, please sit down. Let's talk about this properly, like adults, like professionals. I clearly touched a nerve I didn't mean to touch. I misjudged the situation. I misread the room. Can we please just talk this through? A nerve? Colin let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. You didn't touch a nerve, Graham. You stomped all over something sacred to me. My sobriety isn't a party trick. It's not a fun anecdote for your show. It's not something you bring up for entertainment value. It's my life. It's who I am. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than any role. Harder than any challenge I've ever faced. And you treated it like a joke. I understand that, Graham said. But his patience was clearly wearing thin now. His jaw was tight, his shoulders tense. But you also need to understand that when you share your story publicly, when you talk about it in interviews and write about it in articles and make it part of your public image, people are going to reference it. That's how interviews work. That's how conversations work. That's how the world works. You can't put something out there and then get upset when people mention it. Not like that, they don't. Colin shot back immediately, his voice rising again. There's a way to discuss someone's past with sensitivity and respect. There's a way to honor someone's journey without making it a joke. There's a way to talk about recovery that doesn't trivialize it. And then there's what you just did. What you just did was mock it. Whether you meant to or not, that's what happened. That's what it felt like. Graham's jaw tightened even more. You could see the muscles working under his skin. What I just did? What exactly did I do, Colin? Please enlighten me. Tell me what terrible thing I said that warrants this kind of reaction. Tell me the exact words that were so offensive, because I honestly don't know. You trivialized it. Colin's voice echoed through the studio, bouncing off the walls, filling every corner of the space. You made it sound like my addiction was some quirky phase I went through, like it was all just wild fun and crazy stories, like it was this entertaining period of my life that makes for good television. It wasn't fun, Graham. It was hell. Absolute hell. And the fact that you can't see the difference between a respectful conversation and what you did, that's the real problem here. That's what's truly disturbing about this whole thing. One of the producers stepped forward from the side of the stage, a young woman with a headset and a clipboard, probably trying to signal for a commercial break, trying to save this situation before it got even worse. But Graham waved her off aggressively, his hand cutting through the air. He wanted to finish this. He wanted to have the last word. He wasn't going to let Colin walk all over him on his own show. Colin, I think you're being incredibly unfair right now, Graham said, his voice cold and sharp, all the warmth gone from it. I've been nothing but supportive of you over the years. Nothing but. This show has always been a safe space for people to share their stories, to be vulnerable, to be real, to be human. And if you can't handle a simple reference to your past, to things you've discussed publicly and openly, maybe you shouldn't have agreed to come on. Maybe you're not ready for this kind of exposure. Maybe you need to work on your own issues before doing press tours. The room went dead silent. That was the line. That was the moment it became absolutely clear this wasn't getting fixed. There was no coming back from those words. You could feel the shift in the room, like the temperature had dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Colin's face went from angry to something else entirely. Hurt, maybe, betrayed, or just done. Completely and utterly done with this conversation, this show, this host, all of it. You know what, Graham? You're absolutely right, Colin said, his voice eerily calm now, which was somehow more frightening than when he was yelling. When someone gets quiet like that, you know things are about to go south. I shouldn't have come on. That's on me. I take full responsibility for that mistake. I actually thought you were different. I thought you were one of the good ones. I thought you actually cared about your guests as human beings, not just as content for your show. But you're just like the rest of them. You want the headlines, you want the drama, you want the viral moments, you want the stories that will get people talking. You don't actually care about the people behind them. You don't care about us at all. We're just entertainment to you." "That's not true and you know it," Graham protested, but his voice lacked conviction now. He sounded tired, defensive, beaten. "Isn't it?" Colin reached down and removed his microphone, the little clip-on one attached to his jacket. He fumbled with it for a second, his hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline, then dropped it on the couch where it landed with a soft thud. The sound echoed in the quiet studio. "Because from where I'm standing, you just proved exactly what you care about. And it's not me. It's not my well-being. It's not my recovery. It's not my mental health. It's the show. It's always the show. The ratings, the clicks, the buzz, the social media reaction." Graham opened his mouth to respond, to defend himself one more time, to salvage what was left of this disaster. But Colin was already moving, already heading toward the exit with determined, angry steps. "Good luck with the rest of your show, Graham," Colin said, walking toward the side of the stage, his voice echoing through the stunned silence. "Hope the ratings were worth it. Hope this moment was worth destroying whatever respect I had for you. Hope it was worth blowing up whatever relationship we had." "Colin, don't do this," Graham called out. But there was an edge to his voice now. He wasn't pleading. He wasn't begging him to stay. He was angry too. "You're making a huge mistake walking out of here. This is incredibly unprofessional. You agreed to be here. You have a responsibility." Colin stopped for just a second, turned back to face Graham one last time. The look on his face was pure contempt. "The only mistake I made was coming here in the first place. But hey, at least you got your moment, right? This'll be all over the internet by morning. It'll be trending on Twitter. Everyone will be talking about it. The clips will go viral. Congratulations, Graham. You win. You got your dramatic moment." "That's not what I wanted," Graham said. But his words fell flat. "Bullshit," Colin said quietly. "That's exactly what you wanted." And with that, Colin Farrell walked off the Graham Norton show, his footsteps echoing on the stage floor like gunshots, disappearing into the wings while the cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of his exit. The audience sat in stunned silence, not knowing whether to applaud or gasp or what. Some people were filming on their phones, even though they weren't supposed to. Graham stood there on his stage looking like he'd been hit by a truck, his face pale and drawn, his hands hanging limply at his sides. The other guests didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even look at each other. They just stared straight ahead, shell-shocked. Nobody knew what to say. Nobody knew what had just happened. Nobody could process it. 1 minute it was a normal Friday night talk show, fun and light and entertaining. The next minute, one of Hollywood's biggest stars had walked out after an argument that went from 0 to nuclear in less than half a minute. The producers finally cut to commercial, the red light on the cameras going dark. But the damage was done. Everyone in that studio had just witnessed something nobody expected, something nobody was prepared for. A confrontation that started with a joke and ended with a walkout. 21 seconds that changed everything. 21 seconds that nobody will forget. 21 seconds that will be replayed and analyzed and dissected for weeks to come. Colin Farrell was gone, the stage door closing behind him with a heavy thud that seemed to echo through the entire studio, leaving Graham Norton standing there alone, the weight of what just happened settling over everyone like a dark cloud, thick and suffocating and impossible to escape.